to No Gatekeeping, the Founder Series. I'm Carlyn Bushman, sales strategist, business consultant, and founder of Pop Academy. This is where we go behind the scenes whoop, whoop, with real founders to talk about what it actually takes to grow a business and all the other stuff. No fluff, no filters, no gatekeeping. That is near and dear to my heart because why not share the information that can help everyone, right? So today's episode is for every founder who is, guess what, looking for that oh so lovely visibility, whether that's a podcast interview, a feature in the press, a speaking engagement, a YouTube live, and wondered now what? Because visibility is powerful, but visibility without conversion, really, right? So that's just noise. Our guest today is going to show us how to turn those media moments into real measurable profit. And I encourage everybody who's watching with us today, please drop your questions in the chat. We will look at those live as we go through this interview because I'm so excited, which is why I like live with Beth Nydick, a former TV producer turned media strategist who helps high-level entrepreneurs transform podcast guest spots into 10K opportunities. As the creator of Mike to Millions method, she blends storytelling, visibility, and the oh so important conversion strategy to turn media moments into money, cash in the bank. With two decades of brand building in the media and 2 decades of motherhood to match.
Yep.
hmm, Beth is known for her straight talking, cheerleading meets strategist energy that helps her clients get seen and paid. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much. Sometimes it's so interesting to listen to your bio, right? Like let other people introduce you and you're like, oh yeah, I did do all that, right? Oh yeah, that is
Yeah.
who I am.
And I
But
don't think we even scraped the surface of your bio. So, just as an aside, I encourage anybody to go check out her LinkedIn because you will be in awe. So, I'm so happy you're here. This is amazing. I love the opportunity to connect with you offline and online. So, where do we get started? Talk to us.
I think where we get started is really having a conversation about visibility goals. Because I think everybody in our space is like, I want more exposure, I want more visibility. But when I ask clients or even friends like you, well, what are your goals? You're like, get more visible. I'm like, no. How do we connect your visibility to your actual goals? And I think for me and how I teach on my campus, it's awareness, it's sales, or it's credibility and different kinds of media, meaning podcasts, communities, panels, things like this, connect to those goals and then finding the right platform to accomplish those goals. Because those goals, I know, let's keep going, should be connected to what you're offering.
Okay, so
Versus
don't
I just do
wait,
more media.
Beth. Sales though, what don't all of us want sales like at the end of the day? Or do you not see that? Or talk to us a little bit about that because I'm thinking, well, yeah, awareness is great. Cred, of course, that's really super important. But hello, money in the bank,
Oh,
10K, Mike to
yes,
millions.
100%. So I'll tell you something that just happened to me recently. I got a DM, not even a DM. I got a full email, like a really well written email. She had found me on your podcast. Actually, I didn't tell you yet. And then
Oh,
she listened to me on Ellen Yin's podcast.
okay.
And she reached out because she wanted to tell me how much she enjoyed it. And she had a question for me. So she asked me the question. And if you reach out to me in that way, I'm happy to have 15 minutes with you. But her response to me sending her my Calendly link was like, I'm not ready to work with you. I see your Mike to Millions. And she wrote, I don't know you enough yet.
Oh, interesting. I
Right?
love her transparency, by the
Well, yeah.
way.
Well, I'm like straight shooter. You're definitely my people. And I was like, and she asked if I offer one-off calls. And I was like, happy to talk to you for nothing. Like, you don't need to pay me for a call yet. Let's get to know each other, see if we can fit together. But though the awareness for this prospective client who hopefully will become a client is part of the whole piece of goals, because sales are great. Using media for sales is great if it's a warmer audience, right? So how are
Mm,
you using your podcast interviews in your nurture sequence, in your email sequence, in your sales sequence when you're launching versus how are you using other types of media outside of when you're selling for sales, for awareness and for credibility. Because people are looking at what you're doing, right? I would never, if she didn't reach out, I wouldn't have known she listened to some of my podcasts, and she's probably listening to some more of my stuff, my Instagram, my TikTok, all the stuff. And she'll eventually become a sale. But right now she's in that awareness stage, but she's already gotten my credibility. So depending on where you are in your business, and I mean, if you're 1 year in or 10 years in, and what you're trying to accomplish, because if I want to be in more, as you know, I love being on TV. If I want more national TV, getting myself more credibility media, higher level stages, higher level media will help me get onto those platforms, right? If I want a TED Talk, I'm not looking for media that's going to help me with sales. I'm going to look for media that's going to grow my audience, because my numbers, right? How many people follow me, how many people in my email, and when they're looking at me, and they in my bio says Oprah, says Drew Barrymore show, says NBC, ABC, CBS, that credibility, and also says Stilettos, and says what other show, Ellen show, or Earn Your Happy with Lori Harder. That credibility affords me bigger stages. Those bigger stages afford me more sales. So it's really got to be in like a full ecosystem, rather than I just want sales from every piece of media that I do, because that's will get you some sales, but to get to the 10K payday, which means getting clients from using your media for good and not for what I say, nothing.
I like the way you frame that. So, okay, I've got so many things that just
Okay.
came into my brain. So, like, for instance, okay, question number one. If I want to get on TV,
Yes.
do you suggest I start really down that track? Or is it okay if there's something that is in a magazine about me, or there's something that is, I'm on a podcast, or all those things? Or should I start to put my focus on TV spots? Like I feel like, I'm on a podcast,
Yeah.
I might be in a magazine, I'm here. Now
Right.
I'm like a little bit diluted, but my ultimate goal is X.
It depends on who you are and what you want. I want to
Okay.
be on TV. Most people that I talk to are like, oh, that's not what I want. Right. But if you want to be on a national stage and you want to be the next household name, then yeah, like let's call your local TV station and see how to get you on. Right. If you want a book deal with Hay House, TV is going to help you. If you want a TED Talk, go be on more stages, go be on more podcasts. And that's what I mean, like having your visibility goals, not just for growing your business, but where do you want to go with this? A lot of people tell me they want their own TV show. And when I press them on TV, they've never been on it. So it's incongruent. So really
Yeah.
having that like honest conversation with yourself of not what you're capable of, because everybody is capable of all of this stuff, right? It's what we allow ourselves to accomplish and what we allow ourselves to do. But what are your long-term goals for your business and your personal brand?
But Beth, it feels like this could take forever. Like forever, ever, forever, ever, ever, right? So when I'm thinking about this, is it a long-term game? Is it like, how could I use a press piece so for instance, I have a client through my
Right.
Pop Academy, she's incredible. And she was recently on the news on TV, or
Awesome.
she wasn't, her product was on TV in
Great.
Chicago. So that made her day. And I was so happy for her. And I love seeing these wins come out of Pop Academy, right? We
Yeah.
have them all the time. They show up on screen. I have another client that just got into Bloomingdale's, right? So these are really big wins for these clients
Yeah.
and these students. So having said that, she's got this press piece. We have this conversation. Now what, right? Her product was on TV in Chicago. Okay.
So a couple different things. Does her entire audience, online and offline, know she was on TV so they can celebrate it with her, right? Which will garner her more sales. So is she telling her audience? Did she inform them that they were going to be on? Did she say, hey, at 10 o'clock on Tuesday on WBN, which I think is the Chicago station, right? We're going to be on. Please tune in. Here's their social media where they've highlighted my product. Here's the website. Please go. Like, getting your audience to support your media is a big miss that most people miss, right? But that's a piece of it. The other side of it I'm like, I have to use my hands because I'm from Jersey. I'm trying to, you're like, you haven't even opened your,
Straight
I'm like,
talking. That was in your bio, but
it is.
talking with
So
hands was not in your bio. Straight talking was in your bio. Not talking with
I should put it in my bio.
You should.
She should be reaching out because I'm assuming an influencer or a tabletop presenter, you brought her product onto this show, right?
Correct.
So did she get back to that influencer, thank them and say, hey, I'd love to be involved in something else you're doing are you doing another show on a different channel? Hey, can you introduce me to somebody? Or reaching out to other people that do what she does with the tabletop. Hey, I was just on WBN with Carlyn. Would you be interested in highlighting my product? Because media gets you media. And when you're talking about product, media gets you awareness, which gets you sales. But it's got to be two-pronged, and most people do nothing with it, right? They put in their stories, or they're like, yay, mom, I was on TV.
Yeah,
But
totally.
really telling your online and offline audience and using it to get more media, that's how you're actually using media for profit and not just getting visible.
So I'm guessing this is part of your framework because this
Yeah.
sounds like you can take this and where all the gold is kind of lost in this is after it actually happens.
Right. It's the anticipation to getting your people interested, which also
Mm-hmm.
reminds them that they could go buy your product. Right. It's that promotion piece. So we're so afraid of promoting ourselves and promoting our products that we're not actually doing it using media, because media for a product is really just promotion. But
Right.
you can sit down and be like, I have this opportunity. Who else needs to know? How do they need to know about it? And then what can I do with it? Versus what most people do is like, oh, that was great. For example, let's go back to when I was doing food. I have a cocktail book called Clean. It's over there. Clean Cocktails: Righteous Recipes for the Modern Mixologist. One of the reasons that I was able to get that book deal is because I had done so much media. I had been on the Dr. Oz show. I had been on the Chew. I had been on the morning shows. Like, I was able to demonstrate to that publisher that I could sell books. If I didn't use that media, I would never have gotten that opportunity to get a book deal. And on the back end, I've used that book to get me so many other opportunities, stages, introductions, things that I wanted to do. You know, I got to have great experiences because I had this tangible piece. And yes, it's a book, but it's also content. And that content is a tangible piece that we're not looking at, not we, because I am, but people watching are not looking at it as a part of it. Because let's go back to the Mike's method. Like, what's the message behind it? What are you saying to get people interested? What's the interview? What are you doing before, during, and after the interview to anticipate or to entice your audience to be involved in what you're doing? What's the CTA? How are you getting people into what you're offering without being like, if this resonates with you, you know. Like,
please don't do that. Please don't do that for
that.
everybody. Like,
right?
We should even type that in the notes. Please don't don't say that.
Don't do that, and don't do. I was so honored to be on blah blah blah. Like, that makes me crazy.
Yeah.
And then S is scaling the system, having it in place, because what I teach is a step-by-step system that you can rinse and repeat. So that every time you have media, these are the things you do. Every time you have media, these are the things that happen. And that's how you continually get to use media, because everyone is trying to get visible, but what you're not doing is using it for your business to get profitable, because being productive is great. But I know in Pop Academy, being profitable is so much better.
It actually, my love of numbers and spreadsheets are my love language. And somebody asked me yesterday, if you could do something, what would you do if you would not get paid for it? Like, what are things you would do and you didn't worry about getting paid for it or not? Or what do you lose track of time on when you're doing it? And, I said spreadsheets, and the person interviewed me, her facial reaction was like, ugh. I go, oh, if I can just get into a spreadsheet, I'll just do it for you for fun. And her reaction was like, who are you and why? Why would you do that? But I do have a question on that. So, like with Mike to Millions, I love the framework. As you might guess, I love the structure. Profitability, yes, ding, 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 resonates with me, of course. But on that note, so can I do like your framework, your Mike to Millions, if I've never had a piece, or what if I had a press piece that is 2 years old? Like, is it better for me? Like, what's the right audience for me to come in? And can I use a press piece that is 2 years old still today?
So, yes, is the short answer. You
Love
can,
it.
because who is there to tell you you can't, and why should it matter? As long as the messaging is on point, as long as it's a connect to the right audience, it doesn't matter if it was 10 years old or if it's 2 seconds old. And going back to what you said as well, like, I don't care if you've never had media before or you've done tons of media, because if you've never done media, let's get you doing it the right way. And if you have tons of media, you're not probably doing it the right way. Right? If people have said to me that before, I've been on 50 stages or 50 podcasts and I've never made a dime from it. Well, that's your fault. It's not the stages, it's not the podcast. It's the system you don't have in place after, before, after, and during the media for you to make that happen for yourself. Because what happens in media, and it's in social media and in our businesses as well, we stop ourselves. I've been having this conversation. My son, he's an ultra marathon runner, and he's like, well, everyone can run 35 miles. And I go, well, physically they can train for it, but they can't mentally get themselves there.
Right.
It's the same thing with media. Everyone can go online on the Today Show and kill it, but not everybody. Most people can't get themselves there. And that's why I developed this, first of all, thick skin, because I was in media for so long. But I developed the underlining message of everything I do is really, you know this, why not you?
It sounds so scary when you say that to me, but I know it's true. I know it's true. I mean, these YouTube lives, let's just be honest. I've never done the YouTube
Yeah.
lives until this summer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. Why not? Because I always like to be learning. ABL, always be learning, just like
Yeah.
in the product space, always be launching, right? So I'm like, I'm going to try this. First time I did it, I thought, oh my gosh. And to your son's point, you're right. You've got to get past a few of those to then really let yourself sink into it, right? And the same
Yeah.
thing with media. But it is terrifying.
Yeah. Guess what? So is being a business owner. So is being an entrepreneur. So is being a mom. So is being a person. Like, right.
Oh,
It's
what about
terrifying.
my personal story, Beth? So when you're talking
Yeah.
about this, and I sent you an article yesterday. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. But I was just curious, like how much this is such a fine line, whether you're on social, whether you're in the media, whether you're doing a TED talk, right? How much of that vulnerable, and specifically for females, let's just really like it is what it is, the genders, right? And not across the board. I don't want to
Right.
genderize. That's not what I'm here to do. But I personally feel like, how much do I share of my personal story? And then how much do I just like not? Like, help me out with that.
There's not a steadfast, like, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. I'll give you some examples. Patrice Poltzer, she's
Yeah.
right. She does AI and your story, your brand story. If you follow her social media, she shares her anxiety, right? She shares her moving across the country. She shares how she feels every single day. My friend Jordan Gill has an autoimmune disease. She shares how she is stopped and how she can get around and using her health and not, and how she deals with her own health and her own business. Erica Rothenberger, she's the Audacity Conference. She's a speaker. She was unfortunately assaulted and almost strangled to death, and has done a TED talk about it. So, right, and women talk about their abuse. They talk about self-body image. Like, it's about how you can allow yourself the space for your audience to accept everything about you. Because unless there's something that you've done, right, that you're racist, sexist, you're an a-hole, like, right, what is it that you could possibly share about your story that people on general, because there's always haters, because in general gonna come at you negatively. If I know your story, Car, and I want you to share your story, I'm not going to share it for you, obviously, but I know that when you share the full story, your people are going to fall even more in love with you, because I did, and we were friends already, right? When you share all it is about you, and to be completely honest, like, I have a little bit of a hard time with that. I don't.
Sharing your whole story.
It's not sharing my whole story. I think I share a lot of my story. It's that I'm not often very vulnerable, and it's something that I've been told before by friends and coaches that I could share more of who they get to see when I'm comfortable with them or when I'm one-on-one with them, that I'm not always sharing online, because I've shared my story, right? that's not really it. I don't have like a different story to share, but I don't often talk about like the dark side or the down times or the things that I'm struggling with in a larger way, which I'm working on. So it's not to say like everyone out here is doing the things, but when you have a story that you haven't shared, I want everyone to have the courage and the knowledge that your story is going to be accepted by your people. Because why not you to share that story, and why not you to get the love from your people that you deserve?
And I think that is, I thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing about my story too, by the way. We'll get to
No.
that, Beth. But you know what? It sounds like this is a two-way street right now,
Yes.
by the way.
Yes.
So you've
Of course.
just been fully vulnerable and transparent with us and said you also have, you're still
Of course.
also working through some of that. And I think there's a fine line, and I get this from a lot of Pop Academy students who are very specifically right now product-based businesses. So those product-based businesses inside of Pop Academy, um, there is always the conversation, always, every single semester, there's the conversation, how much of me needs to show up on camera? Can I just show my product? And in a product business, it's easy to hide behind your product. In any
Yeah.
business it is, but specifically product because they feel like they don't need to really know me. And then the second thing that is the struggle often is, well, I don't want to share, like, do I have a story? And
Yes.
or do I really have a story that's unique or, about me? And or you don't want to come across as woe is me either. Like, I mean, I think, and I'm just being very like straight as we
Yeah.
do, no gatekeeping here today. That's what I get a lot of conversation with. And I can't disagree with some of that.
I don't think it's a woe is me story. I think it's a who you are as a basis and why you were inspired to create this product offer or whatever your thing is, right? Like say this is the product, right? But you do
Sure.
have a story. I'll even go here. My friend Lisa Johnson. Lisa grew up with nothing and figured out a way. I mean, nothing, and figured out a way to make $20 million. And she shares all about those struggles and all about her marriage and her kids and all the things that she went through. She shared that story. So it's not a woe, and it could be a woe is me, or it's a rag to riches kind of story, and not everyone has that,
Sure.
but everyone has a piece of something, right?
Yeah.
I always say this when we're talking about storytelling. What was the color of the tile in the bathroom in your high school when you were hiding during lunch from the bullies? Right? We
Yeah.
all have those stories. So instead of looking at your life and the breadth of what you've done with a critical eye, look for stories that you could use or you could tell that will resonate with other people. The struggle you had to like even tell people that you had this idea. What's that story, right? It doesn't need to go
Yeah.
back to like, because I grew up in northern New Jersey and I had an Elvis impersonator in my bat mitzvah. Do you think I grew up with nothing? Right? I grew up with everything
Love.
I could possibly. My car at 21 was a Mustang convertible, right?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like my parents were entrepreneurs. I grew up with a different
Yeah.
point of view, so I don't have that like woe is me story, and I don't need that woe is me story because it doesn't matter where you came from. You
True.
can still get yourself to go on national TV to make a. I posted this morning. I just got my hair colored. I posted this morning a picture of my hair, with all the dye on it, right? So whatever your level of comfort is to start at, you will quickly learn that people want more of that. Because what people really want to know about is your digital personality, not so much your products. Look at celebrities, look at influencers. You know so much about their lives, and then you go watch their movies and buy their products versus the other way around. In digital,
Or
you learn their products and then you learn about them. And I want to switch all
well,
that.
yeah, and it's so interesting that you just said that because we can think of celebrities and then I'll say something like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know Ryan Reynolds owned that company."
Right.
Like all of a sudden it's like that flip side. You're saying so much that so like resonates so much with me, and I'm sure it resonates with everybody else who's watching too, because we talked a little bit before we jumped on camera about, and you brought up something about your story, right? Like the story, your background story, or why you're doing what you're doing, or why you're selling the product you are, or what caused you to lean into this specifically. And I was asked on a podcast, it's been a couple of years now, something about what triggered entrepreneurship in me. And I didn't step into entrepreneurship right out of the gates. Like I was in corporate, and my parents were not entrepreneurs. My mom was in real estate. So that did flirt a little bit with
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, right? That wasn't even a word. Let's just be honest. That wasn't
No,
even
it
a
was not.
word when I was growing up.
Business
Like
owner. Right.
Yeah, I don't even know what we called it, but something, not that. And I remember thinking, I grew up, oh, like comfortable. I wouldn't say like, well, there was dodgy times. And I grew pumpkins. I grew up in rural Wisconsin. I grew pumpkins to buy my first 10-speed bike. And I do remember when we talked about like those childhood memories, I do remember getting on that bike for the first time and being able to have control of where I could go. And that was like the biggest deal to me. Like now I can just use those two wheels and go anywhere I want, but it was because of what I did. And that feeling inside of me was like, oh, thank you. And I mean, I was probably 12 because I couldn't stand being stuck at home with no means of transportation at that young age. There was no Uber.
Amazing.
I was none, you know, so you think about that.
Yeah.
And that was a trigger though, and in a positive way. Not all triggers are bad,
Right.
where it flipped me back to that time in my life. And I think these conversations can spark, what is your story? So now when we're talking about this, what are the mistakes you see entrepreneurs make in interviews or media appearances, whether it's using their story, not using their story, that costs them opportunities? Like what are some of the things you're like, man, if she would have done that, or if he would have, leaned
Yeah.
into that, or if the interviewer would have asked that question, like let's unpack that for a minute.
Well, let's use your story, right? So you made the
Sure.
pump, you grew the pumpkins, which like blows my mind anyway.
Yeah.
That you grew pumpkin. We had pumpkins in Jersey, but I was growing tomatoes instead. But and you're talking about how you felt in control of your life when you got on those two wheels,
Oh.
and you can connect that to your business. What happens a lot on interviews, especially on podcast interviews, is they tell a story to talk about themselves and they don't connect it to their business. They
Mhm.
don't connect it to what their message is, their underlining message of their story, right? So
Mhm.
that story goes along with a piece of your framework within Pop Academy. How does that connect? Because what I teach in the Mike's method is when we go on podcasting, we're not just telling stories to tell stories. How are we connecting the through line of what our message is overall for our brand, the product, and our business to what we've experienced? Because you can look back and see all the dots that connected it. I was very fortunate growing up, but I also worked every weekend in my family's car wash when I was 14 to when I was 19, right? And I tell a story about sitting behind the counter before there were computers, right? I had the and I had the credit card machine, and how that really taught me how to talk to people, and that's where I learned how to
Mm.
actually sell, because I had to sell. There was a monthly membership you could join, right? I learned how to sell that. So when I'm telling the story, I'm not telling the story to say like I had a job when I was growing up, but I had a job that taught me X, Y, and Z, and I still use that today. And I can teach you what I learned in my program to help you make the transformation. And that's why you should come work with me. Rather than I grew pumpkins because it was fun and I got a bike. There's a very right.
Yeah.
So what's the right word? What's the lesson that they can learn from learning your story? And I bet you'll get some like I grew pumpkins growing up
Yeah.
DMs people, which is now a warm lead to a conversation versus getting silence or what we call crickets on my campus.
Well, and Beth, my lesson is, man, if I would have known my numbers, I could have charged more for those pumpkins. I probably had
Oh yes.
people steal some pumpkins, so I had a whole leakage situation I wasn't even aware of. And I could have bought my two younger sisters bikes also. And we could have all had that full embodied escape or freedom from having no wheels or no transportation and go where
Yeah.
we wanted to go at young ages. So I
Amazing.
think about that, right? I'm like, if I would have known my numbers like I do now, that would have been so much better. And yes, we had no computers either. And who knows how much cash I actually was collecting on that. But
You're the credit
such
card.
an interesting story. No, no credit cards. We were cash only. No, 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 no. I needed to make the money. I was going to be under a certain amount. And I did not
Right.
want to feel like I needed to report all of
But do
that
you
at
see
that
now
age.
how your story, it's not just a story. It's a
Hmm.
story where you can convert that into why you do what you do today. What's the
Yeah.
story that gave you the idea that you could be a business owner, that you could be an entrepreneur? What was that experience? And when you tell that story again, I want to hear more about the pumpkins. Like, we work so hard to like get through the story versus like you grew orange pumpkins and they were the size of baseballs versus basketballs. Like bring me into the moment of the story, because going back to the original question, which was what do people do wrong? They tell a timeline story. First I did this and then I did this, versus drop me into that moment in your life. Tell me what you smelled, what you tasted, what you heard, what the weather was like, what the feeling was like. Because we're so visual in our lives now. And I know we're not the same, but like everything's a movie in my head. It's always been like that. That's why I was in
Yeah.
TV, right?
That's why you are good at what you do. Yes.
I see everything as a movie. So if I'm listening to you on a podcast, I want to be able to see it in my mind's eye as the movie, right? Or myself in that moment in time, or bringing me back to like when I first got my first bike. I don't remember because I don't remember anything from my childhood, but what was
Another
that
conversation.
moment? That's a different conversation. What's that moment in your life that you can drop me into so that it resonates inside of me, in my body, versus just something I've heard? Because what you want from that conversation is for me to be able to go tell a friend, right? Did you hear Carlyn's story about pumpkins? Like that's right. And then something about the pumpkins. If I only knew my number, right? That lesson, how can I go tell a friend? Because that's what you really want. Everyone's focused on being on it, but what we're actually talking about is how we're on the platform, what we're saying, when we're saying it, how we're saying it, so that it does resonate with people beyond, oh, that's nice. And that, one of my top line entrepreneurs that I worked with last year, one of the reasons she came to me is because she's an 8-figure business owner. She's on all the stages. She does all the things, but every story she told was a timeline, and she wasn't converting, and she knew she was kind of boring. And when we took that timeline out and then gave her 4 points on that timeline and 4 stories on that timeline. And now when I hear her on podcasts, I love hearing those stories because I can drop into that moment. So if you're listening, think about the tile in the bathroom of your high school. Maybe you weren't running from the bullies. Maybe you were the bully. But what's that moment that you learned from being there that you can connect to what you're doing, connect to the hearts and minds of the people who follow you?
That's brilliant. And so in your Mike to Millions program, and by the way, I'm going to follow up, not on this recording, but about your working at the car wash, because I have so many different stories about the things you must have had to handle through that. So different
That was
conversation,
interesting.
but I'm sure it was. But if we're thinking about what you've just described, so I can drop into your Mike to Millions program and you can help me unpack what I just did with you here live, right? Or that eight-figure client that you have, where you will help me pull out, if you ask me my timeline story, I can give it to you. And you're right, we do rush through a lot of times. Number one, I rush through it because I don't want to take up space, and I'm trying to get so much in after this. Okay, several, like many decades of experiences at this point
Right.
in my life. I feel like, oh man, my timeline's going to take up, the first 30 minutes of any conversation, if I let it go that way. And you're saying no matter where you are in your stage of business, no matter where you are in your media journey, no matter what your age is, actually, you can help us in Mike to Millions to really craft that. And then in addition, this sounds incredible. In addition, the frameworks to get it out to the world.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that reframe, that appreciate too. Yeah, because I think it's really important to know how, what, and when you're saying something on an interview. And then what I'm offering you as a step-by-step system, I call it your promotional hug. What's the promotional system? What's the awareness system that you're using around it to actually get it out there? So I get pushback. We've talked about this too. I get the pushback for the 10K. But if you can get one-on-one client from a conversation they've listened to, it's probably in our business, it could be worth 10K, right? I've had so many DMs. I need to work with you. When can I talk to you? Those turn into cash because my directive is to have that conversation, to know how to connect to people who are listening, right? I'm an old TV producer. All I've done my entire life is tell stories. So I created a program that's around how to tell a story on media, because it's very different than marketing. And then around it, how to use that promotional system, that awareness system, and the 20 years of media training that I've had so that you can actually make money from it. Being in digital for the past Okay, I'll say from 2007. I won't say how many years it's been, but we all know it's been a long time, right? I started in 2007, and everything has changed, but telling resonance stories and learning how to promote them the correct way.
Yeah, that's really good.
Everything else has changed.
Yeah, and that's the other thing you do in Mike to Millions, which I can appreciate too. It sounds like you keep everyone in that container up to speed on the things that are changing, and you make it super relevant to today's time and things like that. So this is super exciting. I have so many other questions, but I know we're limited on time, and I want to honor your time because I know how busy you actually are in your business and serving all these clients in the media. Are there any parting words, any like something, if I'm going to say, I'm going to walk away and do this today, outside of signing up for your Mike to Millions program, what would you encourage me to do? I need to take action. I'm an action taker. So what would you encourage me to do?
So what I would encourage you to do is to DM 3 people right now where you can be on their platform. And their platform could be, let's do an Instagram live. Let's go live on our YouTube. Hey, I love your podcast. Let's talk about this. Hey, I'd love to come talk to your community. Everyone watching knows 3 people that they can reach out to and collaborate with in a visibility way, in an exposure way, to get in front of other people's audiences. Because we didn't mention it, but I want to make sure that we do. Media is borrowing other people's audiences where you are giving credibility right away. Because coming on here, your people have faith in you that I'm somebody they need to listen to. I don't have
Yes.
to convince them that I'm an expert. They already
No.
trust you, so they trust me. So I want everyone to really think about how they're using media as a directive to audiences and growing your own. But whenever I leave anything, and I get this question a lot, like, what do you want people to understand? That you are your own possibility of success. No coach, no VA, no marketing anything or assistant or marketing guru is gonna change your business, is gonna change your life. You're the one that has to direct that. And if you can take my idea of why not you with you to make that happen, then we can all win together.
Oof. Goes back to my mantra every day: rising tide lifts all boats, Beth. So I love that. Thank you for those action items. I'm actually going to, I wrote it down as well. I'm going to DM 3 people today, and then I'm going to go on to Instagram and say, I took Beth's advice, head over to our YouTube channel to watch
Yay!
the full interview. And this is what I did. So that's just doing exactly what you're talking about here. Like, let's
Exactly.
not stop here. What can we do after that? Beth, it is
Thank you.
really great talking to you. Thanks so much. Oh, love talking to you. And thank you for sharing with us that visibility isn't the end game. Really, it's just the beginning. And this is a kind of media strategy that everyone needs to really embrace. So your Mike to Millions sounds like an easy yes for all of us for sure. And this is what No Gatekeeping is about: real strategies, real stories, and tools that help founders lead with intention. I want everyone here to share this with somebody who is looking for that visibility. You will not want to keep this to yourself. Again, no gatekeeping, remember that. So please share this with a colleague, a friend, a bestie, a business bestie, whoever that might be, and also subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because you know what? We show up here every Thursday. So stay tuned for next Thursday, and thank you for joining me. Have an excellent day.